Gianna, great to have you on.
It's great to be on. Thank you so much, Andy.
Sure. Let me give you a bit of a background on Gianna. So Gianna right now is a co-founder and chief operating officer of ChampionHQ, which we're going to dig into now in a couple of minutes. But some of Gianna's background, she's been a strategic GTM leader for the past 2 decades almost. Being now the co-founder of ChampionHQ, which was the winner of the 2024 Go-to-Market Innovator Award from Pavilion, which people who may or may not be familiar is the ex-Revenue Collective. Pavilion is a huge group of executives across the tech industry, which is booming. The Pavilion thing, I'm part of Pavilion myself, and you can see there events across Europe and the US. Started out of the US, and now they also have chapters across Europe and all across the States, and growing rapidly. If you're not following them, you should. You should
Definitely
also have a look at Sam Jacobs stuff, Kathleen Booth as well, who's coming on this podcast later this week, who's their vice president of marketing, who I've also interviewed in other podcasts with. Great person as well. On top of that, with Gianna, she was named the 2017 Female Executive of the Year by the Stevie Awards for Women in Business, CRN's Women of the Channel in 2021, and the Positive Leadership Award in 2023. So on top of that, Gianna serves as a co-chair of the board of directors for Read 718, which we're going to get into now in a couple of minutes. But just a bit of a background on Read 718, it is around helping or working with tutors to help people overcome their learning challenges, which is also sparked from some of her learning challenges growing up. So if you look at Gianna's LinkedIn profile, she's very open and honest about her experiences growing up with some learning difficulties, and we will dig into that a little bit as well. Gianna's focus is customer-led growth, and that's the thing that we're going to start with. But before we do that, Gianna, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing at ChampionHQ.
Amazing. Thank you so much for knowing my bio and doing all of that history. That's amazing. It was a nice moment to reflect on my life, so appreciate that. What we're doing at ChampionHQ is it's a B2B enterprise software allowing customers to understand who their champion customers are using AI. And then putting them in revenue driving plays to really change go-to-market strategy in this era of profitable, efficient growth, allowing customers to be at the forefront and really viewing them as a revenue driving channel. So think inbound, think outbound, think partnerships, think customers.
Interesting. So you mentioned something there just which sort of struck a note with me, which is around the profitable growth. Okay. Which, looking at your profile as well and the amount of experience that you have and having been in the tech space for the past 2 decades, like profitable growth was not always a focus, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. I've shared this story before, and I will say it again. I am incredibly thankful for my time at Blue Wolf and then Mondo. It was 12 years being in SaaS adjacent. It was tech services. And we were PE backed. And so we grew profitably. We drove 15% EBITTA year over year with a growth rate of about 30%, top line revenue year over year as well. And so I grew up in tech having to be exceedingly cheap and exceedingly resourceful. And so really, this feels more normal to me because of my first 12 years, and it feels more responsible, quite frankly. When I hopped over to the product side within SaaS, this notion of growth at all costs just seemed so foreign and so irresponsible. I didn't really understand how it could last and why it was okay. And I just saw so much waste having been around me. It quite honestly just seemed wasteful and inefficient, and it just created a lot of bloatedness within organizations that I think created chaos and stagnates growth. And so it's a healthy balance, really.
I agree. I also work with a couple of businesses that have been focusing on being profitable from the beginning, that have been bootstrapped rather than taking VC money. I think VC money. I will say
we are VC backed though, but
yeah, but well, VC, I was just about to say how great VC money is, and how wonderful VCs are to work with, and that they let you just, let your hair down and take over full control. No, but So look, I think it needs to be a balance, right?
That's exactly right. It's the balance, and it's understanding that certainly you put dollars in. It's really evaluating how much you can get from that dollar, and really thinking about how you can do more with the right amount of resources. And I think if we think that way, that's what's going to lead to the right decisions being made, while people can still be empowered to spend and spend thoughtfully. It's also making sure that there are just some checks and balances in place.
Yeah, and I think that's the message that I'm getting from VCs nowadays as well, that they're more focused as well on EBITDA, right? So like any VC that I've been speaking with are focusing on that, and rather than focusing, okay, what's your logo growth, right? Which was the case a number of years ago, which is actually
sorry, I think we're going to the same
go
place.
ahead.
You do the segue, which is counterintuitive to customer-led growth.
Exactly, 100%. Because so having worked at a company, so I worked at Emarsis, which was later bought by SAP. So I helped grow the marketing team there. And when I first joined Emarsis, like over 10 years ago now at this point, they were saying new logos, new logos, new logos. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, shoot, we need to maybe focus on our existing customer base and look at some expansion there, because our net retention is not looking too great. And where's easier to expand, where's easier to get revenue than with companies you already know and where they're already doing business with you.
And I think that the danger in only looking at net retention also is that you lose sight on where you're getting that revenue and where that growth from, which might only be a subsection of your accounts. And you have to look at gross retention as well, really looking at that logo retention to make sure that you're holding on to customers no matter what. Interestingly, I had mentioned being in services and that, we were driving EBITDA. There was a point when we were growing. We grew that business. I joined at 5 million and grew it to 100 million. And there were these peaks of and plateaus of growth, right? Of how do we build for that next level? What is appropriate for that next level? And what we found was that in the early days, we're amazing at hunting, right? I call it hunting and killing. We were, getting those new logos, and then we realized what was stunting our growth was not retaining those logos, not getting repeat business from those logos, not expanding within those logos. And that really became the motion of getting from 30 million to 100 million. And this is really where I am excited Champion is helping SaaS enterprise organizations get to, is really thinking about what are those growth levers within your customer base to drive engagement, right? And participation, so that you can expand those logos and utilize your very successful and happy customers to help you close more business as well. And so it's really that impact, two ways that it can happen. One is new logos and having them influence new logos, and the influence that they'll have within their own logo as well, right? The expansion, cross-sell opportunities.
Super interesting. Yeah, I mean, you hit a good point there as well around the gross retention as well, about holding on to as many customers as possible and not just looking to expand in their existing, like into the ones that will actually expand, right? And you'll see over time as well, my experience is that if you manage to hold on to them long enough, they will start to expand just naturally, right?
Absolutely. And really focus on allowing them to get value from your product or your services, which is also going to help catapult growth, or it should, right? As long as your product is doing what it says it should be doing, right? Whether it's efficiency or driving, revenue with them. And so that's how you get to greater profitability, and that's how you get to greater growth, is really holding on to your customers.
100%. And it, like, to summarize that bit of the podcast now, I used to work with a guy who's now the CEO of Marrow Post, if you're familiar with a guy called Sean Brady. He was also he just left Terminus, if you're familiar with Terminus. And he was also the head of the US for Emarsis back then. But he had a very good saying that really summarizes this very well. Happy customers buy shit. So like that was
but don't
so
you
simple.
love how simple? Exactly. I always laugh going on these podcasts because I'm like, people are going to think that I'm like, this simple, person with not these, grandiose thoughts, but that's the reality. Use common sense, right? And put them into practice, and just create simplicity among, all of your processes, your people, and just create ease. You create ease for everyone, you're going to do really well.
So you mentioned something common sense there. You're assuming that common sense is common. That's an
I think
issue.
we've realized that it's not. But that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. So before we get too political, let's talk a bit about like customer led growth and what you think customer led growth is. Or let me phrase that a little bit differently. What are some of the plays that you would do for a company? Like, let's go back to what we were just talking about before. Come into a company that be focused on growing logos. Okay, I want to have logos up on the wall. That's my most important thing. And then you're like, oh shit, actually I need to focus on my existing install base now, because
Yeah.
I need to go do something. What do I do?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for that tee up. What we're helping customers with is really thinking about customer led growth in assisting customer marketing. It's like a CRM for customer marketing. And what are some of these programs you want to put in place? When I think about customer marketing, their role is to assist sales reaching their targets and to assist CS in reaching their targets. And your question is, how do we use our customer install base to help us acquire new logos? So one program that you want to put in place is a reference program, right? And we allow using AI to give that best match. So thinking about giving highly, highly relevant and contextualized conversations between a prospect and a customer. This is going to shorten the sales cycle, which is a huge pain right now. And it is also going to allow you to increase your close rate, and thinking about it as a lever to close some of those harder deals. And so we talked about efficient growth. Part of it is doing more with your pipeline. So not even investing more dollars into building your pipeline, and instead increase your close rate, some of those harder deals, some of those more competitive deals, through a reference program. So that's one way. And then the second way, track job changes. And now you've built relationships and you're engaging with some of your happiest customers. In tech, we know the average tenure of someone in tech is about 1.5 years. And I think that number is even decreasing, especially for executives who are the decision makers. Follow them to that next role when it's appropriate, in a very honest and thoughtful way. But if they were fans of yours and using your product or service, they will be again. And so that's another fantastic way to increase visibility into more logos.
Absolutely. Okay, that's super interesting. So that's one of the things that I've always sort of struggled with in the marketing role, because I know about the speeding up pipeline, right? So having that direct link between a prospect and a customer is like golden. So if you have a customer that's able to sing your praises, what I would normally do is, for example, a very easy example would be is having hosting a prospect dinner, and then having customers come to that and have them
love that.
sit beside one another. Yeah. Here's wine for everyone.
And let them do it. Totally. I was just at a conference and I was walking down the hallway and I saw one of my customers giving a demo of Champion to two people I've never spoken with before. I know. The biggest chef's kiss to that ever. Really, that was just the highlight of a moment for me in this journey of Champion. And, customers are going to talk about you whether you're in the room or not. And hopefully it's going to be positive. Why not proactively build a program around how they can do it, and really thinking about what's appropriate within that customer journey? Maybe at first it's a testimonial, then it's a reference, then it might be a case study, and really thinking about how to map these acts of advocacy to the customer journey so that you're asking for the right ask at the right moment. And then it's also understanding who to be reaching out to. And I go back to that AI component of really scaling who you want to engage with within this notion of customer marketing, customer advocacy, so that you can build up the right repository of people to harness, right, and leverage for these thoughtful conversations. And as you mentioned, it's exceedingly powerful when you're matching up the right people who are going to get equal value from that call. And that's what's so incredible about a reference program, is if you are matching up the right people, they're going to have a really thoughtful conversation where they're likely building their network, building connection, cross-sharing ideas, and they're both going to walk away feeling really positive. And that's something that you enabled. That's a gift that you gave to them while they are helping you close a deal as well. The second piece that you mentioned around speeding up that sales cycle, I've got a client who had a lot of parameters around her program. They would allow references for stage 4 opportunities, but only stage 4 or later, because they only had a certain amount of references. And she's now been able to find more people to reference, get them engaged in the program. And now her and her team are proactively giving references to stage 3 opportunities. And so they're thinking about, how can we align ourselves with the objectives of the sales team, which is close as many deals as possible. Let's break it down as simply as possible. And so now they're doing a more proactive approach to try and help, again, shorten that sales cycle even greater and increase that win rate even further.
Awesome. And that's all from ChampionHQ. That's all from what you guys are doing. That's awesome stuff. That's awesome. So, by the way, if you want to check out ChampionHQ, I'm going to put a link in the bio of this so that people can go and click at it and have a look at this, have a look at the platform, and also get in touch with you guys. Before we finish up, though, I want to dig into one thing. So, tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing at Read 718.
Oh, thank you. I love being able to talk about it. We are providing free one-to-one literacy coaching, tutoring to kids from very low income households. These are kids who are at risk, who have fallen below reading level. And studies show that if you don't catch up and you are not at reading level by the 8th grade, you're never catching back up. And now there are a lot of studies coming out that there's a direct link to illiteracy with incarceration, with low poverty rates, and it really impacts your trajectory for the rest of your life. There's a phenomenal documentary out right now called Sentenced. It's on Peacock. Steph Curry produced it, the basketball player. He narrates it, and it shares a lot of statistics and some really heartfelt stories of unfortunate, wonderful people who fell below reading level, and catalogs their life and where they end up. And it's really shows you the gravity of the situation. So I'm proud. Read 718 is a local organization to Brooklyn, New York. We service around 200 kids this year. It's an 11% growth over last year. And we heavily rely on donations and grants. And so if anyone feels in tune with this mission, I'd love for you to throw the link as well and ask 100%. For some donations, because they're doing really great things. It's pretty remarkable.
Absolutely happy to. I'll make sure that we get that shared in the bio as well. And I know this is something that's very close to your heart as well. You've been very outspoken about it as well on LinkedIn, just looking through your posts, etc.
Yeah, so, thank you. It's I had a hard time. I had a really hard time growing up. Reading was a big challenge for me, and because I was such a slow reader, I wasn't able to comprehend what I was reading, and I fell really below reading level. In the 5th grade, I scored an 18% on a standardized statewide test. And so think about that, seeing a piece of paper that tells you that you're, 18% of your peer group. It was devastating, but I was able to receive that one-to-one tutoring just like these kids at Read 718 are. And it's all I needed was just a little bit of extra support and someone just sitting next to me in a highly personalized way. And I was able to catch up. And so it feels amazing to be able to support an organization that's doing the same for marginalized communities within Brooklyn.
How is it in the States at the minute? Like, I can only comment on how things are in Europe, and it's certainly not great, but how is it in the States just generally for people with learning difficulties that are not from privileged backgrounds? Like, because obviously Read 718 is focused on people from non-privileged backgrounds, but how is it? Is there government funding? Is
that's anything? A great question. There's not as much government funding as there should be, and I've got a lot of friends in Europe who, quite frankly, just didn't understand why I would donate such of my, so much of my funds and my salary, and why I asked for donations, and because there's just a stark difference. The government, we were just have too grave of a problem here and not enough funds to really help support this initiative.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that this gets shared as well. But we're just right on time now, Gianna. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, meeting you for the first time as well. But hopefully we can stay in touch and hopefully come back on again at some point.
Thank you so
Perfect.
much for this opportunity. This was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And hey, look, where's the best place to find you, Gianna? Is it LinkedIn or?
LinkedIn is absolutely the best place to find me.
Excellent. I'll make sure that that's also shared. So we've got plenty to share in the bio, plenty of links, but also I'll make sure that we're pointed to you as well. But
Thank
hey,
you.
look, thanks so much again, Gianna. It's been really great speaking with you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Tune in again next week for more great content. Thanks, Gianna.
Thank you.